Honorable Member of Parliament, ambassadors, esteemed scholars and respected professionals, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all in the Islamic tradition. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a great privilege to be here, and I'm grateful for the gracious invitation of Professor Abdifatah Ismael of his institute. I'm invited to discuss the Ethiopia Somaliland Memorandum of Understanding, which has been signed on the 1st of January. Before I delve into the issue, I just wanted to make a remark about myself. This issue, in addition to the fact that it concerns all Somalis in the Horn of Africa region, not only Somalia, but also personally, I come from the region which the issue concerns most, Somaliland. It is also personal in the sense that my father was born and died in Ethiopia. So I guess I should have as much right as anybody in that region, and I'm qualified to become a citizen of that region. I'm also qualified to become a citizen of this country because my mother's family is from here. My mother operates a small business in this country. But I have made an informed decision, a personal decision, to become a Somali citizen. In addition to that, I forgot that I should have mentioned, I'm also, I hold a British citizenship. I don't call myself a British citizen. I only hold their passport. So I'm Somali, from Somalia, and I'm proud to be one. Having that said, I will try to address the issue I'm given to discuss through a number of questions. The question I will begin with is, and I think some of the professors have kind of laid the groundwork for that. They've spoken about the leadership personally, at the personal level of Abiy Ahmed, and I think I should continue doing that. I have not prepared an academic, this is not an academic exercise for me, it's more personal. So for that reason, I think Somalia, the first question is, who are we dealing with? And my simple answer to that is we're dealing with desperate despots. Three enemies are at the gate. The first is my cousin, Musabihi. The second is Al-Shabaab. And the third, which many people believe is a new addition, but I always believe he's one from the beginning, is Abiy Ahmed. So I wanted kind of tease out the common things they share. And I came up with about 4 characteristics, if not 5, they share in common. One of which is the personalization of issues. They take, when you're holding an important office like presidency or premiership, you're supposed to be acting at a very strategic level, not at a personal level. So for them, politics is personal. They also suffer from superiority complex. I will explain that later. And my way or the highway approach or attitude to everything they do. And lastly, they suffer from underestimation kind of character. To explain this, I will first begin with Musabihi. Musabihi's demeanor consistently reflects, and I don't call him president anymore, I won't call him because he lost that respect when he signed off a piece of a land that he doesn't have an authority to sign for anybody other than a Somali, of course, for building. So his personal demeanor consistently reflects a sense of personal offense in response to every challenge he encounters, mostly coming from clanism, where he tries to kind of guard off the power from clan A or B to make sure that they don't come to power, and to make sure that, for instance, at the Somali level, the entity he represents does not share anything with their brothers and sisters. And that is motivated by clanism. The second thing is his belief in supremacy, which kind of flows from the previous one, which again is deeply rooted in clanist views, where his authority remains unquestioned. If anybody questions him, he gets arrested, and he most likely will be thrown into jail. The third is the my way and the highway we mentioned, which defines his leadership, creating an aura of indomitable will that rarely bends to the perspectives of others. No space belongs to one particular politician or a leader. Space is shared for governance, for politics, and for social development. People will have ideas, they will need to share those ideas, and there is no otherwise other than opening up the space to accommodate people. In his universe, a compromise is a sign of weakness. The strength is measured by unswerving adherence to his often suicidal actions. You can't call them convictions, but actions. But I think one mistake he makes is that he underestimates people's determination to have their voices heard. And one example of that, result of that, would not be more evident than what happened in Las Ano. A popular uprising where people, civilians like myself and you, took up the arms against a brutal dictator who wants to make them suffer much longer than they already did. Prior to that, he's famously known for his saying, "Anigo wahdili kara du'a qaadan maayo," which implies a refusal to accept leniency so long as he has a gun in his hand. The second group we are dealing with is Al-Shabaab, which perceives itself like, or as a group, as messengers of God, holding the belief that the interpretation of religious tenets is the only valid one. And I think they share that in common with the previous person we mentioned, because that is exactly what he believes. They also have a supremacy mindset, just like him, which fuels the zero-sum game approach, where they adhere strictly to my way or the highway attitude we mentioned, rejecting any form of alternative viewpoints. This extreme stance highlights their commitment to their so-called cause, irrespective of the consequences. And I was present in Mogadishu when 1,400 people evaporated just like that in a matter of seconds in the Zope terrorist attack, which is only second to what happened in the States back in 2001. They often underestimate the resolve of the people, just like him, miscalculating the resistance and the determination of those who stand against their extremist views. And that's exactly what happened. Their actions kind of led people to take up the arms against him, civilians like Awisley, in various regions, not only one region, two or three, but almost in every corner of where they were ruling. And they underestimate the resolve of the people in that regard. So the third one is Abiy Ahmed, and he shares all of the things we said above. He harbours a belief that his ascension to power is ordained by God. His approach to leadership is tinged with tribalism as he seeks to ensure the dominance of his tribe, which I do not think he represents them all. He's just using them for staying in power, as Professor Muhammad Hassan said earlier, at the expense of a more inclusive governance, which would have benefited the different ethnic groups in Ethiopia, including the Somalis. Again, he shares the my way or the highway attitude. He sees collaborative decision making or alternative viewpoints as a weakness. One of his ministers, I just came back from Ethiopia, and while I was there, one of his ministers said, for Abiy Ahmed, he kind of projects himself as an environmentalist, as somebody who values the environment. But for him, for killing someone is so easy for him, while for planting a tree, or more than a remark along that line, in which Abiy prioritizes the planting of trees, then ensuring that people stay safe and they don't get killed by the state. That minister is in jail now, and by the way, he was the minister for peace. So with him, peace is arrested. Furthermore, Abiy consistently underestimates the resolve of the people, and that's why you see he's the first prime minister where his home region sees the most problems in terms of resistance. Nala Zenawi didn't have that. The Salen didn't have that, and the others before him didn't have that. So that tells something about him. He could not even control his own region, let alone anybody else. And when I was in Ethiopia recently, Chichiga is actually booming because of the fact that there are crises everywhere else in the country. Somalis benefit from that. Of course, they need to maintain that. But that's what is happening. It reflects his leadership. Country is banning, as the previous professor said, 70%, he said. I wouldn't disagree with him, having just come from there, that the country is going through deep crisis. Having said that, my second question then is, what is the source of their desperation? We established that they are desperate despots. So what is the source of this desperation? I think, firstly, they are confronted by locals who are increasingly rejecting their rule. This rejection stems from their detachment from the populist needs and aspirations. Secondly, they face a world that is either outrightly against them or skeptical about engaging with them. Lastly, there is improbability, if not impossibility, of them staying in power any longer. All the signs are there. They're desperate, they're going, and they want to make sure they don't leave anything behind meaningful unless they are in power, which is very bad. My question number 3 then comes to the issue we came here to discuss. I came here to discuss, which is, in so doing, what have they done? Of course, it is the last kicks of a dying horse. Mustafa signed away 20 kilometers of Somalia's land. He doesn't have an authority to do that, but he found a partner who is not willing to respect international rule and international law. 20 kilometers extend from the sea to the border, and many of you might be aware, but Lukai is not very far from the border, and Ethiopia will have a direct access to the sea if it wishes to go ahead. But I ask myself, How many countries does Somaliland need to recognize, and what would remain if it continues exchanging recognition for land? Every 20 kilometers, just imagine, maybe 20 more countries, if they need to recognize, there will remain no land for Somaliland to recognize. Ethiopia's underlying assumption to grab land from Somaliland is kind of based on the idea that Somalia is weak and cannot defend itself. So you take whatever you want while it's weak. But I think that kind of attitude has failed in the past. 2006, Somalia was a lot weaker than it is now. Came together, defended our land, made a much stronger Ethiopia leave by force, not by begging. We forced them out. In the words of Mele Zenawi, in an interview with an international TV, he said, we are bogged down in Somalia. I'm not a native English speaker and I don't want to be one, but my understanding of bogged down is not a good one. Access to the sea. It's not really a bad idea. Uganda doesn't have a sea. There are 16 nations in Africa alone. The world, there are 44 countries in the world which do not have direct access to the sea, and they don't have the problem. And it doesn't actually speed down their development. These countries include Hungary, which is a highly developed country. Includes very resourceful countries like Kazakhstan. Problem using the services of the sea. After all, airports and ports around the world are managed either by government-owned parastatals or by privately owned companies. They charge service, they levy service charges from anybody who wants to use them, whether that is a local citizen like Kenyan citizens or Ugandan citizens. It costs the same amount of money. And governments levy taxes. So what the Ethiopian government wants is not really an access, it's not like a simple service that helps their economic growth. It is basically a land grab. It is the expansionist attitude of the Ethiopian government since its formation. A more rational and economically viable approach would have been that ports are managed by companies which we don't have a problem with and services provided at a charge, including ourselves. So I do not believe somebody or a businessman from Ethiopia should be charged much more than a businessman in Somalia should. The port gets developed through levy. My third point, having seen this aggression, what options are available to Somalia's government? I believe Somalia, we've already established Somalia is not weak when it comes to responding to external threats, and no nation should be, including the one we are in now, Kenya. If the United States decides to invade Kenya, Kenyans should be prepared to do whatever they can to defend their country. So I think no country should be underestimated. In terms of security, Somalia can prioritize, and I think this kind of goes against the assumption that Somalia is weak. It can prioritize strengthening its military capabilities, central to which is developing a comprehensive and cohesive model that incorporates clan militias like the SSC and Mahawisle and whoever else wants to join in order to defend their country from falling apart by secessionists or being taken away by somebody else. This strategy involves professionalizing these militias, fostering sense of national duty, and ensuring their adherence to laws. Somalia could also negotiate, and this is controversial, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Somalia is fighting Al-Shabaab not for itself, but for defending the free world from fanatics who want to impose their ideas. very misinterpreted ideas of Islam onto the world. If the world blinds itself from protecting Somalia's territory, then we will have no problem with Al-Shabaab or anybody else in Somalia, and we will not have the ability to do that. Despite its risks, Somalia is open for discussion or for negotiation with Al-Shabaab. And I think the president has even alluded to that when he said, do not push us to previously unlock doors. Unlock doors simply means we cannot go to two wars. We cannot defend the world and we cannot defend ourselves unless we are helped. So negotiating with even fanatics should be on the table. Somalia could also support or establish resistance movements in Somaliland. No secession is not okay, and no country should allow it. 30 years is too long to wait for these entities to come back, and we should be prepared to take much more aggressive measures if it came to the idea of giving away some of our land to foreigners. We've tolerated enough because we didn't know it will come to this. This includes providing logistical and military assistance to whoever wants to fight for a united Somalia. And there is no problem with that. We should not be shouting. States are made by gangs in many cases. There is no country, I mean, I can't say there is no country, but most countries in the world have at one point or another used the parallel to gas to make or remake their state. Somalia could also expel the Ethiopian contingent from the African Union mission. This would signify a shift in regional military relationships and operations. Lastly, on the security front, Somalia could take a legal action against the secessionists, prosecute individuals who are leading the entity now, and providing their names to the authorities concerned, including Interpol. The second thing that Somalia can do gets the diplomacy or the diplomatic front. Somalia could build alliances with countries in the region and international players who are equally threatened by the reckless actions of the Ethiopian government. Eritrea, I believe, should be one of them. Its strategic importance, its contentious past, Ethiopia would make it a key player counterbalancing Ethiopian influence in the Horn of Africa. Restoring diplomatic relations with the countries we have wrongly cut off relations with, including Iran, should also be a priority for us, as that will significantly alter the geopolitical dynamics in the region. I also think Somalia should reevaluate or readjust its relationship with the United Arab Emirates, considering its close economic cooperation, both economic and military, by the way, with Ethiopia. This recalibration aims to mitigate any negative impact and potential threats that might arise from this relationship, ensuring Somalia's interests are protected. We cannot control anybody's relationship with another. The United Arab Emirates is free to have a relationship with whoever it gets important, but not our expense. We have to always reevaluate these relationships, and our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which unfortunately is vacant up to now, has to deal with that. We have to always reevaluate relationships with countries. Relationships are processes, not products. A more controversial yet, I think, very impactful strategy would be a retaliatory measure, an encouragement of secessionist movements in Ethiopia, such as those of Tigray and Oromia. They are encouraging secessionism in our country. We should not shy away of providing whatever assistance in terms of diplomatic avenues and in terms of military assistance to secessionists in that country. When they stop, we stop. We don't have a problem with Ethiopia as long as it doesn't have a problem with us. Moreover, aligning with Egypt, which is a traditional foe of Ethiopia, of course, over very strategic water resources, would provide strategic leverage which might extend to various domains, including diplomatic relations, security cooperation, and the provision of even bases where the military relates. Forging an alliance, and I don't think it's easy to get, with a globally influential country that could provide both diplomatic backing and military support for Somalia, is also essential. Should be essential in the strategy. In return for this support, the allies should receive a significantly advantageous access to Somalia's vast natural resources. We have natural resources, but our resources not exploited because of our stupid nationalism, which sometimes is, we call it ultra-national. Countries have interests, especially if they are far from you. Sometimes you're poor and you cannot extract these resources. You have to have a way of some discounts to some countries. And we should discuss that very seriously. Who are they going to be is another matter altogether. But we should be prepared that we cannot keep these resources, that we cannot keep this country alone. In the language, the Somali language, we are Langab this world. We are 15 million people in Somalia. We cannot defend this country alone unless we forge alliances with other countries. We also need to leverage international legal frameworks, and we have done that in the past. This might involve bringing the issue to international bodies like the United Nations, the AU. Some of these forums we are together with Ethiopia, and some of them we have more advantage, like the OIC and the Arab League. These forums that we explore in order to advance our legal agenda. But, and this is a very big but, there are too many contradictions in the kind of things we can do. And it's the responsibility of a government. Government is a machine. It doesn't act on the basis of emotion. It brings together many things and makes sense of it. So we need to balance some of the rivalries with the people we want to make alliances with. We have to manage them in such a way that our agreements are both advantageous for them and for us. And I think Somalia is positioned to do that. We are sitting on 10% of Africa's coastal line. And coastal lines are becoming increasingly important in the geopolitical dynamics of the world. So we're strategically sitting on a very big chunk of the world's power corridor. I would like to conclude my remarks on a few things. The idea of self-determination, which the previous professors have alluded to, is an important one. But each self-determination gets born, it emerges in a particular context. In our context, it emerged in 1960, and we made a decision to unite because individually we would be feeling threat. We would be threatened. This is a very hostile region, and we could not survive separately, small states. So we've made our decision in 1960, and we don't want to go back to the drawing board again to make self-determination an issue in Somalia again. Somalia's argument actually regards to self-determination in the 1960s was that we need to revisit, as the professor alluded to. Somalia will argue that to uproot the colonial attitudes, the colonial legacy, colonial problems, we need to revisit borders. Africa and draw its borders within itself, have brotherly discussions on the table, and we redraw the borders. But we lost that argument. And for what many people at the time regarded the right thing, Africa decided to maintain territorial integrities of the countries the way they were. The Somali people, the Somali elite, Somali political class have accepted that, including Somalis in Kenya, the Somalis in Ethiopia, and the Somalis in Somalia. But that acceptance did not come with reciprocity. We're still facing the problem of the very idea we accepted, territorial integrity of Africans, being threatened again, and the remaining, say, 7-shaped territory we have now to be threatened by other countries. I do not think whether it is the right thing for the African leadership to be silent anymore about this issue. We have done what they wanted. We played by the game. We played by the rules, and yet we still feel threatened. That's not fair. So I will conclude finally that as Somalis, we cannot, should not, and will not let go an inch of what we have now until we are all wiped out from the face of the earth. Lastly, I would like to say that in Somali, maybe because I cannot interpret it in English. waxaa jira nin Suldana oo waqooyiga Soomaaliya kasoo jeeda oo wiil u dhalay marka uu la soo heshiiyey nimankii gumaystayaasha meesha joogay oo ay ka dhaadhiciyeen inuu dalka isagu xukumi doono. aabihii buu markaa in badan shugaamiyey. aabihiina oday nationalist buu ahaa, reerkiisa oo Suldana oo la yaqaan. marka odaygii markuu wiilkii wixii ku akhriyay aabbo sidanay noqonaysaa, nimca la gelayaa, sidaa la yeelayaa, uu wax badanoo tiro badanoo faa'iidooyina sheegay, ayuu odaygii oo dee raba inuu hadalka soo jiraa wuxuu ku yidhi, aabbo gumaystaha yeeli mayno haddaynu tooda yeelno, dadka daayeeray ka dhigayaan. wiilkii markaa dee wiil ha ka qaldanaa, siyaasaddu baa ka qaldaneed, nin fariida buu haayo, hadal kaleba ma raadina. wuxuu yidhi, aabbo haddii dadka daayeera laga dhigo inagu cooflaynu ka noqonayna. cooflaha waa taqaanaa, waa ka weyn, daayeer ka weyn. daayeer miyaa la yidhahda? marka haddii waxa laga cararaya oo deegaanka hadda muuse uu dadka uga cararaya, marna Soomaalinimada uga ordaya, marna uuba kuwa ka uga sii hooseeya oo la dhashay xukunka inuu kala cararo daraaddood uu Ethiopia ula heshiinaya. war haddii dadka aad daayeera ka dhigto muusow, dee kuwaynu ka ordaynaa cooflay ka noqon doonaane maxaynu samayn? le Soomaalida o dhan haddaynu ka orodno cooflii bay noqonayaan oo Ethiopia wada qabsato. armay halkan laynoogu qaatay, halkanaynu political classkeeda iyo elitekeeda iyo economic mindka iyo isaaqalku kaga jiray waad garanaysa. haddaynu dee afkaba anagu qabiilka kama xishoonna magaciisa in la sheege, halku kaga jiray waad garanaysaa Soomaaliya. haddii aynu baashii dib loo baandheeyo, arma cooflaha ay ka noqdaan meeshaa kaleynu ku ordayno. waa ka baxay.